We're reading Kim Jong-il, Our Socialism Centered on the Masses Shall Not Perish, which was a talk given to senior officials of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea on May 5th, 1991. So think about that date. This is a talk giving right in the turmoil of the USSR having just been overthrown in a legal overthrow that should largely be credited, of course, by the United States. Although the thing that prevented the thing that was unable to combat that, of course, was organization problems that were present right from the beginning, which we talked about before in another Kim Jong Il work called On Fundamentals of Revolutionary Party Building. So I do recommend that work as well. That's on my YouTube. You can find that on its own playlist, I do believe. So yeah, this should be interesting. This is just a talk that he gave to the Central Committee of Workers' Party of Korea, 1991. So you can imagine the situation at the time. It's a worrying time. Kim Jong-il, what he really wants to do at this point in time in history is he wants to re-inject an optimism into socialism. Because the overthrow of USSR, of course, demonstrates this, terrible setback and this tragedy. And so his goal is to really, reinstill kind of a revolutionary optimism into the international communist movement. That's his goal at this time. He's talked about that before. So, that's some historical context for you. And now the words from the comrade himself. The popular masses have an age-long desire to enjoy an independent and creative life to the full in a society which is free from exploitation and oppression. In order to realize this desire, they have struggled, shedding their blood against their oppressors. They have established a socialist society by overcoming all the trials that face them. Socialism is a new social system, which differs fundamentally from all the exploitative societies that have existed in human history. As such, it has to blaze a trail despite fierce struggles against the class enemies. Therefore, it may meet with transient setbacks in its progress. However, mankind's advance along the road of socialism is a law of historical development, and no force can ever check it. Socialism, which has been established to meet the people's desire for independence and the requirements of the times, derives its unconquerable might from the masses' support for it, and their confidence in it. Our people's support for and confidence in socialism are unshakable. Through their own lives, they have experienced how precious the socialist system is. Throughout the decades of building socialism in our country, there has never been any political instability or any wavering. Today, the imperialists and reactionaries are working viciously to wipe out socialism. But our socialism continues to advance boldly, along the path it has taken without being swayed in the least by the enemy's dastardly attacks and slander. The progressive people of the world admire the durability and indestructibility of our socialism. The secret of its durability and indestructibility is that it is centered upon the popular masses. That it has made the masses the genuine masters of society, and that it has devoted everything to the service of the masses. Because our socialism serves the popular masses, our people regard socialism as the cradle of their lives and of their happiness, and they entrust their entire destiny to socialism. our people, who are enjoying unlimited happiness and a genuine life in a socialist society under the wise leadership of the party and the leader, are working with devotion to safeguard the socialist system and accomplish the socialist cause. Which brings us to Chapter 1. Socialism in our country is the socialism of our own style. It is the application of the great Juche idea and is centered upon the popular masses. The great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, in founding the Juche idea many years ago, reflected the aspirations of the masses and the requirements of the times. He has thus provided our age, the age of independence, with a new guiding ideology. The Juche idea is a man-centered world outlook on the world. It has clarified the essential qualities of humanity as a social being with independence, creativity, and consciousness. It has, on this basis, evolved a new philosophical principle that man is the master of everything and decides everything. In other words, there's nothing in humanity's destiny that determines humanity's destiny other than ourselves. There's no external force. There's no even the economic order only determines it so far. It prepares our ideological level to be at a certain degree, but it is still people themselves that then change and reform that social order. Right? It's not simply capitalism that then turns into socialism. The people turn it into socialism. You see, that's an important distinction. As Che Guevara said, right? The apple doesn't just fall from the tree. That's not how revolution works. You have to make it fall. It has, on this basis, evolved the new philosophical principle that man is the master of everything and decides everything. Juche idea has established the viewpoint and attitude of dealing with everything in humanity's interests and approaching all changes and developments on the basis of humanity's activities. The Juche idea has raised man's dignity and value to the highest level. Because it is the embodiment of the Juche idea, our socialism is a man-centered socialism in which man is the master of everything and everything serves them. By man, whom it regards as the master of everything and as the most precious and most powerful being, the Juche idea means the working masses. So jot that down real quick. The Juche idea views the popular masses as the driving force of social movement. The social movement is started and developed by the independent, creative, and conscious activities of the people, its driving force. Without the participation of the popular masses, no social movement for the transformation of nature and society can take place, nor can socio-historical progress be made. The popular masses are the driving force of social movement because they create everything in society, and through their struggle, ensure the progress of history. Although they promote the social movement and make history, they cannot occupy the position of masters in all societies. In an exploitative society, the exploiting class that eats the bread of idleness, not the history-making masses, is king. A socialist society is one that puts an end to the society in which the position of master is inverted. It makes the popular masses the genuine masters. Our socialism is centered upon the popular masses, in that it makes them the masters of everything, commensurate with their position and role in socio-historical progress, and makes everything serve them. Our socialism for the masses meets the aspirations and desires of the working class most thoroughly. The Juche idea is the revolutionary idea of the working class, and it represents the desires of the working class. It identifies the working class as the core of the driving force of the revolution. The working class embodies in itself, at the highest level, humanity's intrinsic desire to live and develop independently and creatively. It requires that humanity leads an independent and creative life, free from all manner of enslavement and bondage. It has the historical mission of emancipating not only itself, but all the members of society from every form of enslavement and bondage and bringing complete independence to the popular masses. In the former days, our country was a backward, colonial, semi feudal society, and so the working class was not large. Yet, it was the strongest in the spirit of independence and revolution. As this advanced class, it constituted the core of the revolutionary forces. Ever since the anti imperialist, anti feudal democratic revolution, the great leader has held up the working class as the leading revolutionary class, and has made its class requirements and national requirements the starting point of all his revolutionary lines and policies. In our country, all the revolutions, the anti imperialist national liberation revolution, the anti feudal democratic revolution, the socialist revolution, and the building of socialism have been carried out successfully under the leadership of the working class. Our working class has grown steadily in strength. Its role has increased, and it is now successfully assimilating the whole society to itself. With its gradual transformation on the pattern of the working class, the general appearance of our socialist society is being perfected as a society assimilated to the working class, as a classless society. When I say that our socialism meets the intrinsic desire of the working class, I do not mean that our socialist society exists only for the working class. The requirements of the working class agree with those of all the other classes and sections that are interested in social progress. The society that satisfies the requirements of the working class also meets the requirements of other classes and sections. The Juche idea has defined as the components of the driving force of the revolution not only the working class, but also the peasantry and the intelligentsia, and other broad sections of the population, and advocates that their interests too should be met. The peasantry, along with the working class, constitutes the major component of the driving force of the revolution. It is the motive force of the revolution. In former days, when the peasantry accounted for the majority of the population in our country, it was always an important matter in the revolution to meet the interests of the peasants in full. In regarding their peasantry, along with the working class, as the main revolutionary force, the great leader saw to it that all the problems arising in the revolution were solved to meet the requirements of the peasantry, as well as those of the working class. Under the wise guidance of the party and the leader, the agrarian reform was carried out to meet the age-long desire of the peasants to own land. And the socialist revolution in the post-war years was accomplished on the principle of voluntary cooperation, and in the original way of reorganizing the form of the rural economy on socialist lines prior to technical re-equipment. All this was in accordance with the desire of the peasantry. With a view to the ultimate realization of the desire of the farmers, the leader published the Thesis on Socialist Rural Question, and has given energetic guidance to the struggle to implement these theses. Our party's consistent policy in championing the freedom of farmers' interests is to ensure that the state and society help the farmers in every way possible. In every possible responsible manner to realize their desires and requirements. In our country, as indicated by the thesis on the socialist rural question, the working class guidance of the farmers, industrial assistance to the agriculture, and urban support for their rural communities are being stepped up in every way. And the cause of making agricultural, industrial, and modern, and of assimilating the farmers to the working class, is being realized with success. Intellectuals play an important role in the revolution and construction, and their role is enhanced with social development. It is very important that the revolution and construction do deal with intellectuals properly. Ever since the first days of his revolutionary activities, the leader has regarded intellectuals as a component of the driving force of the revolution, as a major revolutionary force, and has guided them to work for the revolution. In view of the fact that the old line intellectuals, as colonial intellectuals, had the anti-imperialist spirit of independence and the democratic revolutionary spirit, our party entrusted them without hesitation, re-educated them, and guided them to work for the working class. It has also trained a large number of new intellectuals of worker and peasant origin, and thus built up an army of intellectuals. Under the wise leadership of the party and the leader, our intellectuals are making an active contribution to the cause of socialism and communism by displaying all their revolutionary enthusiasm and creative talents in all fields of the revolution and construction. The exploiting class is not the driving force of social movement. It is a reactionary force and the target of revolution. Dealing with the working masses is the driving force of the revolution, and viewing the exploiting class as the target of the revolution on no account mean that people's standpoint and attitude towards the revolution and counter-revolution should be defined merely on the basis of their social class. And here comes an important part. People's social class influences their actions, but it does so through their ideological consciousness. Even people of an undesirable class origin, if under a revolutionary influence, can contribute to the revolution. The Juche idea's approach towards people of different classes and strata is that they should be judged by their ideas and actions, and that the people who help towards social progress and the revolution should be trusted as part of the driving force of the revolution, without their social class origin being questioned. Okay, so good to see you. Welcome in. This statement works the other way too. Workers can be reactionary, not inherently revolutionary. Exactly, Teuton. Exactly. Which is why what we're really dealing with when we're talking about the working class being the leading force of revolution, and which is something I appreciate so much about Juche, is that it clarifies it's not the working class, it's working class ideology. And those who adopt that revolutionary working class ideology should be, like he says, they are members, and that's why I always fought against some people who say, well, the vanguard has to be just native nations, like a certain friend of ours on the left has said. Like, I get the spirit of it, and I get the well-meaning of it. It's from another indigenous person in this case, but it's a very mechanical way to think, and it doesn't make sense, right? Because you have compradors, you have people that actually want liberation, you have people that understand liberation in a completely different way, etc. We're talking about, again, a global revolution that, because it is for addressing colonialism and addressing private property, it also addresses the decolonization problem here. Missed you too, Kay. Great to see you here. I hope you're doing all right. We're just reading Kim Jong-il. Alright, to continue. Our party has never hesitated to trust all the people who have come out in the struggle for the masses' independence, and it has guided them along the path of revolution. For the anti-imperialist, anti-feudal democratic revolution in our country, the party formed a revolutionary force of not only the major classes, but also conscientious national capitalists, honest men of religion, and all other forces that were opposed to imperialism and aspired to democracy. In the socialist revolution, it did not eliminate rich peasants and capitalist businessmen and entrepreneurs. It admitted them into cooperative economy on the principle of voluntary participation, and led them to be transformed into socialist working people. Our party has been leading all these transformed people to socialism and communism by trusting them as its lasting companions rather than as temporary fellow travelers, no matter which class or stratum they came from. Well, I hope you enjoy your lunch. So good to see you again. Our socialism has been able to grow stronger and develop steadily, enjoying the unqualified support and confidence of the popular masses because our party has strengthened the driving force of the revolution and has built our socialism on the most durable and broadest foundation of social classes by promptly frustrating the counter-revolutionary schemes of a handful of hostile forces on the strength of its just class and mass line, at the same time as rallying different sections of the broad masses behind itself and the government of the Republic. The members of the social collective are bound together by both the interests of the collective and those of the individual. The banner of combining these two categories of interests is an important factor that determines the progressive character of the social system. A capitalist society is ruled by egoism, which sets the interests of the community against those of the individuals, and places the interests of the individuals above those of the community. Egoism inevitably results in social inequality, as an increasing imbalance between rich and poor, and produces conflicting relations among people. Egoism conflicts with the intrinsic nature of humanity as a social being. Because they are a social being capable of shaping their destiny only within a social community, humanity has an intrinsic need for collectivism. In other words, if humanity has a nature, it is collectivism. The Juche idea has made it clear that the masses, and not an individual, are the driving force of the revolution, and that collectivism, and not egoism, is the intrinsic requirement of humanity. The basic requirements of collectivism is that the interests of the collectives should be placed above those of the individuals, that the two types of interests should be harmonized, and that the interests of the individuals should be realized through the interests of the collective. That which is contrary to collectivism is not in the individual interests themselves, but egoism, which seeks to satisfy only individual interests at the expense of collective interests. In our socialist society, which is the application of man-centered Juche idea, the interests of every individual are respected, and the maximum social benefits and consideration are accorded to every member of this society, on the basis of protecting the interests of the collective thoroughly, and the relationship of the unity and cooperation of the whole society is fully mature. A country and nation is the most comprehensive of social communities. It is a solid organization of people, a body with a common destiny, that has been formed socially and historically. The revolution and construction are conducted with the country and nation as a unit, and the interests of the social collective are those of the popular masses, are realized within the unit of the country and the nation. Outside of the country and the nation, popular masses cannot realize their desire for independence. The Juche idea regards the safeguarding of the independence of the country and nation as a fundamental requirement for realizing the masses' independence. When the imperialists are working viciously to trample upon the sovereignty of the country and the nation, and thoroughly safeguarding its independence is vital to meeting the masses' desire for independence and their interests. With a clear understanding that independence is the lifeblood of the country and nation, our party and our people have always made it their cardinal task to safeguard the independence of their country and nation in their struggle for the revolution and construction. As a result, it has been able to build a dignified and powerful socialist country which is independent, self-sufficient, and self-reliant in defense. We have been able to continue our dynamic advance along the revolutionary road by foiling the now worsening anti-socialist moves of the imperialists and reactionaries. The struggle to champion the interests of the country and nation and to realize its independence is linked with the worldwide struggle for independence. Realizing worldwide independence by opposing the domination and subjugation of one country and nation by another and inequality among nations is a major requirement of the Juche idea, which advocates independence. The cause of realizing independence throughout the world requires as essential friendship and cooperation among countries and nations. Strengthening cooperation among all countries and nations, large and small, on the principles of independence, equality, and mutual respect creates favorable conditions for the people to realize their independence. At a time when the Allied imperialist forces are resorting to evil schemes to trample upon the independence of popular masses, it is very important to strengthen anti-imperialist international solidarity. All countries and all nations that advocate independence must unite solidly and struggle jointly under the revolutionary banner of anti-imperialist independence. Only then will they be able to frustrate the imperialist schemes of intervention and aggression and succeed in achieving independence throughout the world. 1991. Our people, guided by the ideals of independence, peace, and friendship, have been strengthening international solidarity and developing the relations of friendship and cooperation with the peoples of all countries who aspire to independence. They've been effecting multilateral exchange with all the countries that are friendly towards ours, on the principles of equality and mutual benefit. In spite of the difficult conditions in which they are conducting the revolution and construction in direct confrontation with the US imperialists, our people have been given unstinted material and moral support and encouragement to the peoples of the Third World who are struggling for independence. And we've looked at that before on here, including to Palestine, of course. Being the application of the Juche idea, the revolutionary idea of the era of independence, our socialism is the best socialism. It is centered upon the working masses and strongly champions the desire of the working class and other social strata, the nation's right to independence, and the aspiration of the world's people to independence. Socialism is a cause for the popular masses, and socialism and the interests of the masses can never be separated. In order to safeguard the interests of the masses, we must be faithful to the cause of socialism. And in order to champion the cause of socialism, we must thoroughly safeguard the interests of the masses. The aspirations and demands of the popular masses are the criterion for judging the truth of all social phenomena and the guide to all revolutionary activities. In the future, too, we must at all times attach prime importance to the interests of the masses in the revolution and construction and deal with everything to meet them. We must firmly maintain the principle of thoroughly defending the fundamental interests of the popular masses and meeting their immediate interests by closely combining the two. In order to build socialism that is centered on the popular masses, we must adhere to a revolutionary stand, which enables the masses to maintain their position as the masters of the revolution and construction and play their role as such. No matter how much importance we may attach to the desires and interests of the masses, we shall be unable to meet them properly in practice if we do not maintain a correct stand in our efforts to meet them. If the popular masses are to maintain their position as the masters of the revolution and construction, and to play their role as such, they must adhere to the Juche stand. In other words, the stand of independence and creativity. The stands of independence and creativity are the fundamental stands which must be maintained in the revolution and construction. The independent stand is the stand for the masses to maintain their independent position as the masters of the revolution and construction and of their own destiny. The basic requirements for this stand is for them to exercise their rights as the masters of the revolution and construction and fulfill their responsibilities as such. The independent stand is expressed in exercising the rights to independence in all spheres of social life. If the popular masses are to exercise the right to independence, they must deal with all matters in the revolution and construction by their own decisions and judgments, so as to meet their desires and interests. And of course, the way this is put into practice in the government, like we've talked about so many times, is exactly the reason of only having constitutionally one party being allowed, which is that Workers' Party. And then the other law in a socialist society is that the party cannot take direct hold of any state organs. It merely guides the state organs through ideological argument, guidance, and persuasion. And having those members that are, those cadres that are members of the party, who are no doubt very popular and well known because of the party, going through that revolutionary period, being elected to positions and then swaying other people in those positions of state organs to align with the party policy. Because given the nature of what I just said, means that you don't have to be part of any party in order to get elected. It's just that now DPRK is so far along in its revolution after almost 100 years now that that the Workers' Party of Korea is so popular and people are so solidly unified behind it, and it is so big that you're seeing what socialism looks like. It's just like in DPRK, there were certain material things that caused socialism to accelerate much faster there than in other places. And so this is what I always say: socialism in DPRK reflects in many ways, not every way, because socialism has to abide by the particular material conditions that it lives under, right? But also the historical conditions. And that's why I say that, like, DPRK in many ways shows you a generalized reflection of what socialist society will look like, what socialist societies are building elsewhere as well. Anyway, to continue. The right to independence is not provided by others. Damn, I'm going to say that again, because you know what? That's a real good line to come back to right there. The right to independence is not provided by others. The popular masses must win their independence and fight it through their own struggle. The popular masses must win their independence and defend it through their own struggle as the masters of their own destiny. If the masses are to maintain their position as the masters of their own destiny and safeguard their right to independence and their dignity, they must accept full responsibility for solving all problems on the principles of self-reliance. The creative stand is the stand for the popular masses to fulfill their role as people who transform nature and society and shape their own destiny. The basic requirement of this stand is for them to believe in their own inexhaustible creative power and solve all problems creatively by relying on their own creativity. A social movement is a creative movement, is a process of struggle between the new and the old. That is creation, after all. The masses are creators. They overcome the old and create the new. History advances and the revolution is promoted on the strength of the inexhaustible creativity of the masses. In order to give a strong impetus to the revolution and construction, we must maintain the attitude of fostering the creativity of the masses and enhancing their creative role. The creative activities of the masses are always conducted in concrete subjective and objective conditions. The thoughts and feelings, as well as the preparedness of the masses who create new things vary according to the countries they live in, and the socio-economic and material conditions under which the creative activities are conducted. They also differ from country to country. In the revolution and construction, one must always adhere to the attitude of solving every problem to suit the specific situation in one's own country. The practical experience we have gained in our revolution clearly shows that when the Juche stand is firmly maintained, any problem, however complex and difficult, in the revolution and construction can be solved. The socio-historical conditions of our revolution made it imperative to solve every problem from our own conviction, to meet the will of our people, and to suit the actual situation in our country. We started the revolution in a backward, colonial, semi-feudal society, and had to build socialism under difficult circumstances, in which the country was divided into the North and the South, and everything was destroyed in the war. No ready-made formula capable of coping with such a situation could be found anywhere. Still less one capable of blazing a trail and building socialism after the establishment of the socialist system. This required us to consider for ourselves all the problems raised in the revolution and construction and find solutions that suited the situation in our country. From the Juche stand, the great leader advanced original theories on the anti-imperialist national liberation revolution, the anti-feudal democratic revolution, and the socialist revolution. And he systematized them. He has perfected a new theory on the building of socialism and communism in a comprehensive manner. The theory and strategy and tactics of the revolution and construction the leader authored by implementing the Juche idea are a revolutionary theory centered on the working masses. They are the strategy and tactics of the revolution which are based on the role of the working masses. They are a perfect revolutionary theory of communism, which encompasses a comprehensive system of national, class, and humanity emancipation, and the theory of transformation of society, nature, and humanity. Because the original revolutionary theory and strategy and tactics evolved by the leader light up their way ahead, the people have been able to carry the cause of socialism along a straight path to victory without the slightest deviation. The internal and external situation of our revolution was very complex. It made it vital for our people to promote the revolution and construction for themselves, by fully displaying the revolutionary spirit of self-reliance. It is not easy for a small country to conduct the revolution and construction by itself. It was particularly arduous for our country to build socialism from scratch by its own efforts because the country was in sharp confrontation with a formidable imperialist foe, and because it took over only backwardness, poverty, and a devastated economy from the old society and the preceding age. However, our people did not undertake the revolution and construction with the help of anyone else. They were firmly convinced of their being the master of their own destiny, and of being capable of shaping their own destiny, and they formed a solid union behind the party, the leader, and hewed out the path of socialism, overcoming every trial by their own efforts. Because it adhered to the Juche stand in the revolution and construction, Our party has been able to uphold the dignity of the nation and revolutionary principles under all circumstances, however complicated, and firmly carry forward the cause of socialism. The prevailing complex situation requires that we should maintain the Juche stand still more firmly in the revolution and construction. With the imperialists and reactionaries resorting to vicious anti-socialist maneuvers and directing the spearhead of their attack at those countries which maintain revolutionary principles, we must adhere to the Juche stand in the revolution and construction more firmly than ever before. We must be fully aware that adhering to this stand is vital to the destiny of the country and the nation, and consistently implement the party's line and policy of independence, solving all problems to suit the situation in our country by drawing on the creativity of the people. And that brings us to the end of the first chapter. Make sure you stay tuned for the next chapter, which will be in a couple days, probably. There you go. That's